We begin this hour on day 21 of Donald Trump's failed attempts at cleaning up the mess he and his administration have made over the Jeffrey Epstein files. Trump's DOJ continues to take what has been described as unprecedented actions, including having the #2 official at the department, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who also happens to be Trump's former defense attorney, personally interview Epstein's convicted co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, for 9 hours over 2 days. Little is known about what was discussed behind those closed doors down in Tallahassee, Florida, though we do know Maxwell was granted limited immunity for her interview. Maxwell's lawyer made sure when it was done to heap praise on Blanche and note the interest in some relief for his client.
The Deputy Attorney General is seeking the truth. He asked every possible question, and he was doing an amazing job. We haven't asked for anything. This is not a situation where we're asking anything in return for testimony or anything like that. Of course, everybody knows that Ms. Maxwell would welcome any relief. She's been in very difficult conditions for 5 years, and so she would welcome any relief. It's the right thing to do, and we have faith that the right thing will happen sooner rather than later.
Well, Trump didn't take the idea of offering Maxwell some relief off the table when he was asked about it on Friday.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell if
it's something I haven't thought about. It's really something recommended. It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
Joining us now, former Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder. He is now the chairman of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee. Attorney General Holder, as always, thank you very much for coming on the program. Now, I lauded your title. You were the former Attorney General of the United States. But what people might have forgotten is you are also a former Deputy Attorney General of the United States. Todd Blanche has the job you used to have. So, Mr. Former Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, would you ever, on your own or at the behest of the President of the United States, do what Todd Blanche did over 2 days in Tallahassee, Florida this week?
No, I can't envision a situation in which the #2 person in the Justice Department, the Deputy Attorney General, would go down and essentially conduct witness interviews. I mean, if you wanted to interact with Ghislaine Maxwell, you would send the FBI agents who were involved in the case, or more tellingly, you would send the prosecutor, who probably knows much more about the case than Todd Blanche does. Now, the problem is that person would be Maureen Comey, who this administration fired just last week. Now, I know Maureen Comey. She is a great lawyer, a very capable prosecutor, is steeped in the facts of this matter to a degree that Todd Blanche clearly is not. And if you wanted to have a meaningful interaction with her, you would have sent Maureen Comey. I think it's interesting. You know, during his confirmation hearing, he was asked, that is, Todd Blanche was asked, are you still going to have an attorney-client relationship with the president? And he said, yes. So I wonder, is he going down there as Deputy Attorney General, or is he going down there as Donald Trump's lawyer? And that obviously clouds anything, any information that he gets from Ghislaine Maxwell. People have to wonder, you know, are we hearing from somebody who represents the interests of the people of the United States, and more particularly represents the interests of the victims, or are we hearing from somebody who is trying to protect the interests of his client, the President of the United States?
Do you actually think that come on now. He's down there doing work on behalf of Donald Trump, not the people of the United States, which is what he should be doing as the #2 at DOJ, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know, the thing that I think is interesting, if you look at my time as Deputy Attorney General, and I think I was the longest serving Deputy Attorney General, the number of times that I went to a federal prison to talk to a convict about the facts of his or her case is zero. I never, ever did that. And for all the reasons that I just said, you have people who are more steeped in the case have that kind of interaction. But, you know, the way in which this Justice Department has constituted itself as the lawyers for Donald Trump, as opposed to the lawyers for the American people, necessarily brings into play the very question that you asked. Who are they representing? Can they be seen as credible if they are going to report back on a whole host of things, whether it is Ghislaine Maxwell, if it's voting rights, if it's criminal justice reform, any number of things? The Justice Department's credibility is harmed by their identification, not with justice, not with the American people, but with the President of the United States. The typical walls that separate the Justice Department from the White House simply don't exist in this administration.
So I guess, Eric, first of all, it's nice to see you, not in human form, but it's nice to see you. I hope you're doing well. You know, one of my questions that really leads into what you're saying, that there's the credibility of the Department of Justice, the law of the land, the folks that people believe are there every day protecting their rights, is now under increased scrutiny because of the actions of the president and because of the actions of Bondi. So what role then, in your opinion, does Congress have to play to make sure that we create these guardrails, not just for the interest of public trust, but for the real rights of the American public?
I mean, I think Congress has got to be unbelievably aggressive to the extent that you can get Congress to hold oversight hearings to monitor that which the Justice Department is doing. And it's interesting because you've seen kind of a bipartisan concern about the way in which the Epstein matter is being handled. You see Republicans joining Democrats, talking about subpoenaing materials, talking about holding oversight hearings. And so that is, at least in this instance, an example of how I think Congress ought to be conducting itself. Unfortunately, it is not the way you see Congress conducting itself in a host of other areas where, again, you know, I talked about the Justice Department simply identifying with the president. Congress has basically given up tons of its power so that it can identify with the president. I mean, this Congress, as presently constituted, has essentially capitulated to the whims of the executive branch in general and to the whims of one person in particular, and that's Donald Trump.
Dan Bongino, the number 2 at the FBI, yesterday, put out this very cryptic tweet. I'm going to put it up on the screen and read part of it. He writes, "During my tenure here as Deputy Director of the FBI, I have repeatedly relayed to you that things are happening that might not be immediately visible, but they are happening. The Director and I, the Director being Kash Patel, are committed to stamping out public corruption and the political weaponization of both law enforcement and intelligence operations. It is a priority for us. But what I have learned in the course of our properly predicated and necessary investigations into these aforementioned matters has shocked me down to my core. We cannot run a republic like this. I'll never be the same after learning what I've learned." And then it goes on more. But your reaction to that, any idea what he could be talking about? And again, keeping in mind that Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, who is the FBI director, along with Pam Bondi and now the President of the United States, Donald Trump, are all mixed up in the Epstein conspiracy theories out there that has, you know, jammed up the president now for more than 2 weeks.
I mean, I have no idea what Bongino is talking about, and I don't necessarily want to go into the workings of his mind. That's a place I simply don't want to be. But I think we should put a pin in that. And let's see, okay, when we finally get to what they will call the resolution of this matter, has the matter been resolved in a way that's consistent with what he is saying, which sounds kind of like a neutral way in which they are looking at these matters. And we'll see if, in fact, they did that. We'll see what the results are. You know, this notion in that statement that we're not politicizing things, it runs headlong into these bothersome things called the facts. Mm-hmm. This administration has used the Justice Department, has used the investigatory power of the Justice Department to target political opponents of the president. I mean, you've seen Donald Trump talk about a whole range of things, most ridiculous, to talk about the possibility of indicting, prosecuting for treason Barack Obama. I mean, you know, these are dangerous kinds of things that this president is talking about. And I'm really concerned that this Justice Department, under Bondi, under Patel, will do things that are inconsistent with the traditions of the department and put at risk the lives and well-being of many people in this country who are, for whatever reason, politically opposed to or take political positions that are inconsistent with the desires of this president.
We should also add that the president has added Vice President Harris, Beyonce, and Oprah to the list of people he wants to prosecute. So there's that.
Yeah, he wants to do those kinds of things and not focus on that which really occupies, you know, the minds of the American people. You know, let's talk about, you know, public corruption. Let's talk about protecting the economic interests of the American people. Let's talk about antitrust. There's a whole range of things that the Justice Department can and should do that they're not giving any attention to.